So let's go ahead and talk about cloud sizing, the server to the switch. So remember, when you size out a cloud, we talked about in a previous video about virtual CPUs and physical CPUs and RAM and storage and how all those components, what the math is that we need to use. Now we're going to talk about switch fabrics. So how does a switch fabric within a cloud environment scale properly? Remember, one physical server does not scale at the same rate as the physical switches because there's different port counts. And so this is where calculating your cloud cost and building a cloud can become very confusing, quite frankly, as it relates to cost, and even more so you plan on selling that cloud. So let's just kind of walk through some of the basics. You're going to have to add in the details yourself, but they're colored in blue are the fiber switches, and then we'll color the production switches in orange. And oops, we need to add some more switches here. So let's go ahead and copy that and add some management or core switches. So let's kind of clean this up a little bit here, put it all together. So we have essentially 6 different switch boxes within a cloud environment. You know, this is all dependent upon how you have it configured. But let's go ahead and color that green one in as our management network. So a lot of times you'll build an architecture with a management infrastructure as well as a production infrastructure. So let's go ahead and draw this out. So we're going to take one line from the NIC card down. Now, typically you may have multiple network cards on that switch. So instead of just running 2 to the production network, you will have 4 lines. So the calculations are all the same. 2, let's say 1 to each of the fiber switches. Of course, this is all high availability, right? So if one switch goes out, the other one dual path. So here, and then of course 2 to the management network, the core network. So let's write this out: production network and then fiber network here. And so these are your core switches. Your core switches. So you're going to have to ask yourself, for production, how many network cards do I have on the production server to support the production network, and then increase the number of ports that you're going to use. So for example, on the core you may have one line dedicated to backup and the other dedicated to management. You may have another line in here for a lights out type of operation. It has to go to a switch somewhere to talk out. And then you'll have PDUs. A lot of the environments will have PDUs in them that also have a lights out functionality. So we have our power cords coming from the server itself into the PDU, but then we have a network port on that PDU that typically goes onto the management network as well for PDU management. So all of these things all add up to ports used within the environment. Ports used within the environment. So let's go ahead and crush this together a little bit, and let's do a little bit of the math so that we can kind of get our heads around what the logic is on how you would build out this solution. So each physical server in this example, remember, you can change the numbers to accommodate your environment, but each physical server for the cloud has X amount of ports being used from the server. So in this example, illustrated in orange, there is 1 port per production server. 1 port per production server. We're going to talk about the math here in just a minute. We have 1 port per the management network. We have, the fiber network. We have 2 ports per on the management switches. Now I have 3 running to the bottom and 1 to the one right above it, but you get the point, right? So each 48 port switch, does it support, so with this logic, if we have for production 1 port per server, does that mean it supports 48 servers? It does not. It does not. So 48 physical servers cannot be supported on that 48 port switch. Tune in to another episode of Sizing Cloud to understand a little more about the details related to the Ethernet switch, fiber switch.